Thank you.
I'll just get some clarification. The member is finished his speech completely? Okay. The member will have then 10 minutes for questions and comments after questions and after the question period. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This week is National Soil Conservation Week, and I'd like to highlight Manitoba's Netley Marsh. Netley, located at the mouth of the Red River in Lake Winnipeg, is the largest coastal wetland in Canada and one of the most significant wetlands on our continent. The delta is made of numerous islands, and the soil hosts vital vegetation, wildlife, and fish habitat, and is a key pollution filter working like our kidneys. Scientists have suggested a restored marsh would reduce Lake Winnipeg's pollution level by up to 5%, more than all the measures already taken. Prior to 1989, active soil remediation occurred at the marsh, and since it stopped, the islands of soil have been washed out. The International Red River Basin Commission has been working tirelessly to repair the situation. Healthy soils means healthy ecosystems, and it's time this riparian ecosystem is repaired. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands in my riding on its recent acquisition of the Rockport Customs Dock, and I'm pleased that the site will receive a facelift after a close to 9-year effort to acquire it from the Ministry of Public Safety. Almost 9 years ago, a small group of citizens approached me to acquire the historic property that had been a steamship dock and then, since 1934, a customs dock before being closed a number of years ago. Although only 60 feet wide, it was a social hub for generations of Rockport families and their children who gathered to swim, picnic, and to enjoy the views of the beautiful Thousand Islands. This weekend, a lease will be signed with the Friends of Rockport Customs, and fundraising will begin to repair the dock to ensure it opens to the public again. Congratulations to the members of the Rockport Development Group, Hunter Grant, Wendy Merkley, Diane Phillips, Bob Pickens, Morris Huck, and Heather Howard for their efforts on behalf of the residents of and visitors to Rockport, and I look forward to the official ribbon cutting.
The honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize the late Eddie Pearce, a performer, politician, and family man who passed away in Cape Breton on March 31st at the age of 75. Eddie was a true community advocate. He spent a great deal of his life as a steel worker and later spending 11 years in politics as an alderman in the Sydney City Council and 1 year as deputy mayor. Eddie could be recognized for his brightly coloured African tunics, leading the inspirational singers in song and performing cultural diversity through his music. He often performed to schools, but he also had a chance to perform for Queen Elizabeth II. During 2016, during the African Heritage Month, Eddie was honoured to be presented with the Tom Miller Human Rights Award, an award named after his close friend and colleague during his time as alderman. Madam Speaker, in the House, Eddie's commitment to cultural diversity, music, was inspiring to many, and he will be missed in Cape Breton and throughout Canada. I encourage all members of this House to carry on Eddie's legacy and give him a round of applause.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Liberal government needs to stop threatening British Columbians and admit the Kinder Morgan pipeline is not proceeding due to the company's own failings. Newsflash, pipeline construction cannot begin because Kinder Morgan has not yet received final permission from the National Energy Board. 1/3 of the route details have not been approved, and 2 days ago, Kinder Morgan formally asked the National Energy Board to delay all future route hearings, meaning final approval will not come until at least 2019. Of the 157 required National Energy Board conditions, the company has only ticked half of the boxes, not even filed paperwork for 50, and been rejected by the NEB on some of its efforts, including those pertaining to caribou habitat restoration. At the provincial level, Kinder Morgan requires 1,187 permits from the BC government, yet the company has not even filed paperwork for 600 outstanding permissions. Instead of threatening to use the military against British Columbian coast protectors, the Liberals should just admit this zombie project is days away from collapse. Thank you.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Madam Speaker, this week is National Volunteer Week, a time to recognize Canada's 12.7 million volunteers for the tremendous impact they've made in the lives of their fellow citizens and on their respective communities. I'm blessed to have a strong group of dedicated, hardworking volunteers in my riding of Davenport. I could not do my job without them. They are the ones who provide a warm hello and much-needed helping hand at many of the events that I host. I recently held a volunteer appreciation night to express my sincere thanks to some of the amazing volunteers who give so much to their fellow residents. I'd like to recognize Carmen Kurshid, Cecilia Salazar-Puz, Bachrat Pushkarna, Andrea Cunha, Frank Lindsay, Sarah Santos, and Antoinette Shalot. Volunteering is one of the highest forms of citizenship, from lending a helping hand to someone in need to serving a community or group that you love. The magic of volunteering is that it creates social and economic value for all. So, Madam Speaker, to all volunteers in my riding and across ridings across Canada, I want to express my heartfelt thanks for their contribution to making communities and the country a better place. Thank you.
The honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to draw attention to the 2018 Terroir Rural Retreat taking place on April 24th in sunny St. Williams, Ontario. The word terroir represents how all environmental factors, including soil, water, and air, in combination with farming practices, impact a crop's growth. This, in turn, affects the flavor and quality of the food produced. Now, this year's event will feature over 150 important food industry leaders and chefs from all over Ontario, showcasing Norfolk County's food and wines. Madam Speaker, Norfolk County is proud of its agriculture industry, and the Terroir Rural Retreat is an amazing opportunity to show off Norfolk County's world-class fruits, vegetables, meats, cheeses, and wines. Thanks to everyone involved in bringing this wonderful event to all of Norfolk, and I want to wish them all the greatest of success.
The
honourable member for Pontiac. Madam Speaker, producing and consuming maple syrup is an important part of Pontiac's culture and economy. Quebec produces around 92% of all maple syrup in Canada and 71.4% of all the maple syrup in the world. And it's sold in 63 countries around the world. That said, I recently learned that of all these stamps issued in Canada, there had only ever been one maple syrup-themed stamp issued by Canada Post. That was in 2001. The time has come to change that.
Pontiac constituents to help us draft a proposal to Canada Post Stamp Committee for a new maple syrup-themed stamp. And over the past month, we've received paintings, poems, comic strips, photographs, and more, all showing what maple syrup means to Canada. It's been wonderful to see all the creative suggestions, and I'm hoping that we're going to see a new stamp that speaks to Pontiac and Canada's syrup culture in the near future. Bon temps des sucres.
The honourable member for Surrey Centre.
Millions of Sikhs around the world celebrate Vaisakhi, the day Sikhs were asked to be saint soldiers, to fight social justice, be there for those in need, and to eliminate discrimination, a monumental day in the struggle for human rights. Canada is home to many such Sikhs who work in law enforcement, the judiciary, as social workers, and give back through NGOs like Guru Nanak's Free Kitchen and Surrey Memorial Hospital's Red FM Telethon. They're known around the world to be the first with humanitarian aid, whether it be places like Haiti, Iraq, or Bangladesh, or closer to home in times of disaster, such as when fires broke out in the BC interior and Fort McMurray. In Surrey, hundreds of families, gurdwaras, and local businesses will make and serve amazing meals and desserts for thousands of attendees at Surrey's Vaisakhi Parade. Families will walk and pray and remind themselves that despite wherever they came from, regardless of the color of their skin, gender, or faith, all mankind is one. Come join me this Saturday on the birth of the Khalsa, and let's say, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Revenue Agency is out of control. The minister is asleep at the switch. Across the country, Canadians have been filing their taxes to pay for liberal bad spending. Normally, when Canadians complete their taxes, they have until April 30th to pay their balance. But the Liberal appetite for tax dollars is so great, CRA isn't waiting until the deadline to start collecting. Instead, CRA is withholding payments to low-income seniors until the balance is cleared. They're seeing deductions on their monthly Trillium checks and their senior property tax grant payments. Most Canadians won't find out about these secret stealth deductions until after they have sent the CRA a check for money they no longer owe. Worst of all, CRA won't return the extra money sent in. They just apply it to next year's tax bill, secretly deducting before the deadline is wrong. Only a callous government, desperate for cash, would allow this to happen.
Shameful. Shameful.
The honourable member for Montalville. Mr. Speaker, a cancer diagnosis can hit people hard. It affects the patient, of course, but also their friends and loved ones. I'm proud that my riding of Montalville, more specifically the city of Saint-Basile-le-Grand, is now home to the brand new holistic cancer treatment center, Vivacia. Vivacia is the only center of its kind in Quebec. It opened on February 23rd, 2018, and offers citizens the support they need in this very difficult time. Since its opening, Vivacia has helped over 65 cancer sufferers, providing professional specialized services such as reflexology, psychotherapy, massage therapy, naturopathic treatments, osteopathic services, nursing care, therapeutic yoga, cooking classes for people living with cancer, and much more. Mr. Speaker, it's wonderful that the citizens of Montalville have access to the services like the ones offered at Vivacia. So I'd like to recognize the wonderful work that the professionals at this cancer center provide, and I wish Vivacia a very successful future.
Gary Prescott Russell.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate and remember the life of Jonathan Petrie, who passed away on April 4th at the young age of 17. Jonathan was known to many as the butterfly child. He lived with a condition known as EB. Imagine living your entire life with blisters all over your body. Malgré sa condition.
Despite his condition, Jonathan shared his life with the entire world and became an ambassador for his disease.
He somehow found a great sense of humor. At such a young age, he demonstrated humility and wisdom. He has inspired a hockey team, his community in Russell, his larger community in Ottawa, a province, a country, and he's made ripples across the world. Jonathan wanted to create a wave big enough so that when he leaves, it will keep going on. Well, Jonathan, you have unleashed a tsunami in this world. On behalf of residents of Glengarry Prescott Russell, we extend our deepest condolences to his mother, Tina, and his family. Jonathan, your story will continue to inspire us all.
The honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, this Saturday will mark the centenary of the most famous aerial combat of all time, in which Canadian pilot Captain Roy Brown shot down Manfred von Richthofen, Germany's illustrious Red Baron. In so doing, Brown ended the career of the deadliest flying ace of the war, thereby saving the lives of countless Allied pilots. In some ways, Brown and von Richthofen were mirror images, natural leaders who were handsome, intelligent, and patriotic. The dogfight lasted only a moment, but it would become the stuff of legend, a metaphor for the chivalry of aviators and for the tragedy of war. However, the legend overshadowed every other aspect of Roy Brown's remarkable life. So let me mention just one other accomplishment. Unlike virtually every other RAF flight commander, Brown never lost a pilot under his command. Indeed, his famous encounter with Richthofen took place because Brown was diving to the aid of another Canadian flyer. Brave, understanding, and thoughtful, Roy Brown was the very model of a Canadian hero.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to acknowledge the presence of an important group of individuals who are here in Ottawa today, the Board of Directors of Patuti Inuit Women of Canada, their President, Rebecca Kudlu, and Nunatsiavut Representative Charlotte Wood-Wolfrey, and all of their board. Patuti Inuit Women of Canada is the national representative organization of Inuit women in our country, and they are a key partner to our government. These Understanding Women have raised awareness and addressed the needs of Inuit women. They advocate tirelessly for equal treatment of Inuit women across Canada and dedicate their time to creating positive social change for children, for families, and for communities. They are making a significant difference in the lives of Inuit in this country. Mr. Speaker, I ask all my colleagues to join me today in welcoming to the House of Commons these wonderful leaders, Inuit women across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. On April 22nd, we'll be celebrating Earth Day. I hesitated before writing this statement because I wasn't sure what we have to celebrate exactly. We're dangerously close to irreversible global warming that will cause climate disasters. So what should we be celebrating? Although the situation is serious, it's not too late. As astrophysicist Hubert Reeves once said, it's too late when we decide it's too late. And there are a lot of positive initiatives all over the place, whether it's the City of Montreal banning plastic bags, or neighbours coming together to start a geothermal project. People are eager to do something. We can see this in the protests against Kinder Morgan all across Canada and around the world. People's desire to fight climate change is real, and the federal government should join them. So on Earth Day, let's remember that we can make a difference in the fight against climate change. And let's celebrate everything that's being done to protect our Earth. Thank you.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, with a heavy heart, I rise today to pay tribute to my constituent, Adam Harold, who at 16 years of age lost his life in a tragic accident involving the Humboldt Broncos hockey team. Adam, a young man from Montmartre, Saskatchewan, had many accomplishments during his hockey career. He played for the Weyburn Young Fellows Wings and was the top defenseman at the Kamloops International Bampton Ice Tournament in 2016. He was drafted in the second round by the Prince Albert Raiders, won the Western Regional Championship with the Regina Pat Canadians in 2016-17, was captain and champion of the Max Tournament, and first-team league All-Star with the Pat Seas. Adam received the Chuck Harriott Scholarship, an award voted on by the league's coaches and team governors, and presented to a player who exemplifies sportsmanship, commitment, leadership, and dedication to the game, both on and off the ice. To his mother, his father, and family, my wife and I send our deepest condolences. To the community of Montmartre, we feel your pain, we mourn with you. Adam, you had a great coach and my personal friend, Darcy Hogan. And now both you and your teammates are with the greatest coach of all. God bless.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today is Yom HaAtzmaut, celebrating the 70th anniversary of Israel's independence. Yesterday, on Yom HaZikaron, Israelis stood silently in their workplaces, on streets, and stopped on highways to solemnly remember the fallen Israeli soldiers and victims of terror. Today we proudly celebrate Israel's miraculous independence. For 70 years, Israel has been a beacon of democracy in the Middle East, and we count on it today as a steadfast friend, partner, and ally. As chair of the Canada-Israel Interparliamentary Friendship Group, I'm proud to continue fostering strong ties between Canadians and Israelis. I've had the pleasure of visiting Israel countless times, and I'm always left in awe by the spirit and vibrancy shown by her citizens. Even in the face of great adversity, Israel stands proud and strong. As we mark Yom HaAtzmaut, Canada stands proud and strong with them. Yom HaAtzmaut Sameach.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Is collapsing. CIBC warns, quote, slowdown or uncertainty regarding a pipeline is a major factor impacting investment in energy. RBC warns capital is leaving in real time and that people will go with it. Scotiabank is worried about Canada's resource-based economy. Businesses are concerned the energy sector is at risk. This Prime Minister wants to phase out the oil sands. He killed Energy East, Northern Gateway, and the Pacific Northwest LNG pipeline. When is the Prime Minister going to stop undermining energy investment in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the only people who have no confidence in the Alberta economy are the Conservatives. And it's a little strange because the facts make the point, 50,000 new jobs. Alberta is set to lead Canada in growth in 2018. And we could talk about the growth of the Canadian economy too, Mr. Speaker. We could talk about 600,000 new jobs Canadians have created since 2015. We can talk about leading the industrialized world in economic growth. It's just too bad that that pride and that optimism.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
But, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals spent years attacking Canada's energy regulator, track record and reputation at home and internationally. They've emboldened and empowered anti-Canadian energy activists. Now, they don't have the credibility to sell a pipeline or to get it built. They've created this crisis. The livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of Canadians depend on oil and gas. It provides billions for the economy and for social programs for every Canadian. It lifts the standard of living in every community. When will the Prime Minister champion energy investment in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the approval of several pipelines in Alberta, the support of Keystone XL, the approval of Trans Mountain expansion, all at the same time of a $1.5 billion investment in the Ocean Protection Plan to accommodate an increase in traffic of 1 tanker a day with world-class spill response. We understand that we have to talk about environmental stewardship, economic growth, and Indigenous partnership all at the same time. After the next question, we'll talk about this government's record.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, they haven't built a thing, and Canada's reputation has always been as the most environmentally responsible producer of oil. On top of banks and investment firms warning capital is leaving the country, the IMF predicts that Canada's growth will slow by next year and even fall behind the U.S. A lack of foreign direct investment and stalling the Trans Mountain expansion directly affects Canada's growth. Energy is Canada's #1 private sector investor and Canada's second biggest export. When will the Prime Minister stop attacking the oil and gas sector, get serious, and put Canadian investment first?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The 10 years of the Harper Conservative administration, there wasn't 1 kilometre of pipe built to open up export markets. At the same time, they systematically ignored their constitutional responsibilities to consult with Indigenous communities, and they paid no attention to environmental stewardship. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, if you want to talk about 3 strikes, look what's going on. The IMF is sounding the alarm on Canada's management of the economy. They're forecasting lower growth. Economic growth in Canada will be lower than in the U.S. And third, Canada's economic growth will be 2 times lower than global growth. 1, 2, 3. 3 strikes, you're out.
Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian economy is growing faster than it has in a decade. Canada is the fastest growing economy in the G7. The economy has created our government has created over 600,000 jobs in the last 2 years. The unemployment rate has dropped to near its lowest level since 2008. The federal debt to GDP ratio is firmly on a downward track. Canada continues to have the best fiscal position among G7 countries.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. One of the main reasons why the IMF found that the Canadian economy would grow slower than expected is because one of the pillars of our economy, the energy sector, is in dire straits under the Liberal watch. $80 billion less in investment, 125,000 jobs lost. That's the fact, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to our energy sector. Why is the Prime Minister doing nothing to help the economy and this vital sector? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives in 10 years were unable to build any pipelines to bring our exports to new markets. The Conservatives had 10 years to consult Indigenous and local authorities, but they ignored them. The Conservatives had 10 years to fix things up, and they didn't do a thing. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Nejet, Témiscouata, Basque. We learned today that in January 2016, only 3 months after the election, the Office of the Minister of Natural Resources got a call from Ian Anderson, Canadian CEO of Kinder Morgan. The company warned the government that they would scrap the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project if it took too long to get approved. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to stand up to this type of ultimatum. Is kowtowing to a Texas giant more important than a thorough environmental assessment process? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
We understood very well that the failed process of the Harper government meant that the Federal Court of Appeal said no to the Northern Gateway Pipeline project. It was because there was insufficient consultation, so we were faced with a decision. Do we use the failed process, or do we have much deeper consultation? And we did. We consulted with 118 Indigenous communities. We talked to thousands of people. We believe that the process was the one that was mandated by the Court of Appeal, consistent with our Section 35 rights.
Deputy Rimouski.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Nejet, Témiscouata, Basque. In 2015, they promised during the campaign that Kinder Morgan would be assessed under a new, more rigorous environmental assessment process. The company set a deadline of May 31st on its ultimatum to the government. That's an arbitrary deadline the oil giant made up itself. The government's trying to put the cart before the horse to look good to Kinder Morgan. That's giving in to blackmail. With all due respect, we have rules here. A government has to consult to ensure that the rules are followed and that the environment is protected. That's what the Prime Minister promised Canadians. When is the government going to stop allowing its policies to be dictated to it by multinational corporations, gentlemen? Minister of Natural Resources.
Yes, because it had to be. Because the Federal Court of Appeal said in no uncertain terms that the Harper Conservative process failed. So we could have tried to copy them and invite more failure. That wouldn't have been very bright. So what we did instead was spent 4 more months consulting Indigenous communities, and as the member knows, these projects do not always result in unanimity. For example, political parties aren't unanimous. Indigenous communities aren't unanimous. There's only one government that has the responsibility in defining.
The Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
When watching the Kinder Morgan saga, a lot of Canadians are asking themselves, how the heck did we get here? So let's review. First, Stephen Harper guts the environmental review process and ignores First Nations consultation. Then Liberals get elected promising to do better and have a legitimate review. They betray that promise, and now we find out why. They got a call from the CEO of Kinder Morgan telling them to hurry up and rush the process. So my question is exactly, who's in charge over there? A Texas billionaire or the Prime Minister of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we knew that there had to be more consultation, and for good reasons, and we consulted in a fulsome way. The member also knows that among those who have differing points of view would be mayors and reeves in his own riding. And I've met with them, and they believe in responsible resource development, and they actually support the Trans Mountain expansion, even in his riding, because they understand that responsible resource development combined with environmental stewardship is where Canadians want their government to be.
Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
No wonder he's looking so confused. He's looking for support in northern British Columbia for a pipeline that runs through the south of British Columbia. The Liberals were warned by their own officials that rushing the consultation would land them in court. And guess where the Liberals are? In court with First Nations. The Texas billionaire has called again with an ultimatum of May 31st. And when he says jump, the only question the Liberals have is how high. To get this pipeline built on Kinder Morgan's terms, the Liberals have mused about calling in the Army. My question is this: how many Canadians, how many elders and young people are the Liberals willing to arrest just to meet this Texas ultimatum?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we're interested in creating jobs for Canadians. We're interested in expanding our export markets because we don't think it's a good idea, maybe the honourable member does, that 99% of our export in oil and gas go to one country, the United States. We also think there's value in getting a better price for our product instead of the discounted one now that costs us $15 billion a year. So we would like to hear from the honourable member and their party on their vision of the future of the energy industry in Canada.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, in the face of this Liberal government's open hostility to the energy sector, foreign investment is fleeing and it's Canadian workers that are paying the price. This is a sector that heats our homes, puts food on the table of thousands of families, and is at the heart of the Canadian economy. When will the Prime Minister recognize what the energy sector contributes to our country and start supporting it instead of trying to kill it?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, once again, members of the opposition are pushing through an open door, and they can't take yes for an answer. We agree that the energy sector is important for the future of the Canadian economy. It's not only words, we're doing it with deeds all of the time. And we have confidence in the future of the Canadian economy. We have confidence in the entrepreneurship of Albertans, their capacity to innovate, which has led Canada for decades, and it will continue to.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, I find it hard to believe the Prime Minister when he swears to us that Trans Mountain will be completed after Energy East got cancelled and Northern Gateway got vetoed. He clearly stated he wants to phase out Canada's energy sector. Is this all part of a plan to destroy this essential sector? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
It's disappointing that members of the Conservative Party in Alberta don't have more confidence in their own province and in the entrepreneurs and the innovators whose innovation were the reason that we were able to extract that wealth. It makes no sense to keep that wealth in the ground. It makes sense to take that wealth and help finance the transition to a low-carbon economy. It's very disappointing that Alberta members of that side of the House don't have confidence in their own constituents.
Honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, in Ontario, over 1,100 companies and 42,000 jobs depend on the $4.6 billion spent by oil sand producers. Liberal policies have failed Energy East, failed Northern Gateway, and are poised to fail Kinder Morgan. The Prime Minister promised he would transition away from manufacturing and fossil fuels, but, Mr. Speaker, nobody anticipated he would do it so quickly and so heartlessly. What jobs can Ontarians transition to as the Prime Minister implements his job-killing plan?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the energy sector is good for all of Canada, in whatever region we live. It's good for the people of British Columbia, Alberta, my own province of Manitoba. It's good for the people of Quebec. And they come from all over Canada to work in the energy sector in Alberta. When the Prime Minister and I were in Fort McMurray just 2 weeks ago, we talked to workers who were from virtually every region of the country, and they share our ambition to make sure that Canada's energy sector leads the world.
Honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know the energy sector is good for Canada, but the question is, when is the Prime Minister going to realize that? The oil Oil sands benefit not only Alberta, but all provinces. My province, Ontario, receives approximately $1.7 billion per year as a result of economic activity from oil and natural gas operations. Even former Liberal ambassador to the United States, Frank McKenna, warns that Canada's lack of export diversification is dumb. It's even hampering Canada's ability to negotiate favourable terms in NAFTA. When will the Prime Minister realize his bad Liberal policies are not just hurting Alberta, but all of Canada?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our government is pursuing an innovative strategy across the whole of the country, across a number of different sectors, whether it be in manufacturing, whether it be in aerospace, whether it be in artificial intelligence and the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, 600,000 new jobs since we have taken office, all across the country, most of those jobs full-time. Well, we're doing a great job, Mr. Speaker, on economic diversification, precisely what economists are telling us to do.
Member for Carleton.
Wages are paid by money, so when money leaves, jobs go with it. Stats Canada data shows that Canadian investment in the U.S. is up 2/3 since the Liberal government took office, and U.S. investment in Canada is down by half in that same period. Investment is fleeing Liberal tax increases and red tape. Donald Trump says he wants to steal Canadian money and jobs. Why is the Prime Minister helping him?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And our focus is to make sure that the Canadian economy remains competitive. It is one of the best places to invest in the world. We want to make sure it stays the same, Mr. Speaker, with diversification of our economy, with skilled labour, with investment in the middle class to make sure that they have the confidence to invest in their future. And the results speak for themselves, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is working. It's the fastest growth in the G7 that we've presided over in the last 2 years, and it's 600,000 jobs that have been created, most of them full-time. We'll make sure that Canada remains competitive for the years ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Says he wants to make Canada the best place to invest in the world. Well, in 2016, foreign investment in Canada fell by 42%. Couldn't get any lower. But then in 2017, it fell again by 27%. When money leaves Canada, jobs go with it. This government seems determined to send both south of the border to help Donald Trump's agenda rather than the agenda of Canadian workers. Why?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to tell the members from the other side about investing in our people and in our country. We've invested almost $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, in innovative superclusters. There will be 5, Mr. Speaker, and they will create ecosystems in Canada in leading-edge areas that represent growth and jobs for our economy. Mr. Speaker, we've put $1.4 billion into a strategic innovation fund precisely to foster the kinds of investments and the kinds of economic development through technology that will make Canada a leader in the 21st century. Those are good things about investment, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, threats to supply management come from all sides. If it isn't a Conservative calling for its elimination, it's Liberals who are whittling away at it slowly. But this week, the threat's coming from 4 U.S. senators who are calling on Canada to open up our dairy market. For the NDP, it's clear there should be no concessions at the expense of dairy farmers. For the Liberals, it doesn't seem quite so clear. Will the Foreign Affairs Minister tell Washington that supply management is off the table? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker.
I know these moments of levity are encouraging and so on, but the Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We continue to support supply management. We have always defended that system loudly and clearly. Protecting supply management is important to all of us, of course. We're very proud of our efforts under NAFTA. We will always defend supply management for our dairy sector, and we give it our full support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's talk numbers. 146,000 direct and indirect steel and aluminum jobs, good-paying, family and community-supporting jobs that we could lose as a result of American tariffs. Here's another number, 12. That's how many days Canada has before our temporary tariff exemption expires and we become a target for dumping. We need action now to show we are serious about fighting global steel dumping in North America. When will the Finance Minister increase CBSA staff on the ground and fix our trade remedy system to ensure that Canada gets a permanent exemption?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and we've worked with U.S. counterparts very hard over the last couple of months to make sure that Canada is permanently exempted from these unfair and unjust tariff proposals. The Prime Minister raised this issue directly with the President, as has the Minister of Global Affairs, with Secretary Ross and Mr. Lighthizer, as have all other members, senior members heading down to Washington on numerous occasions. We will continue to advocate for full exemption, and I can assure the member that everyone is working hard to make sure this reality becomes a fact.
Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, today's Como decision shows once again that the status quo is not an option. Canadians believe they should be able to share high-quality Canadian beer, wine, and spirits across provincial boundaries. But pages upon pages of exemptions on alcohol and secretive working groups shows that the Canadian Free Trade Agreement has failed consumers and has failed local businesses. Will these Liberals commit today to allow direct-to-consumer sales of alcohol across the country?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Innovation and Science.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member that from the get-go, the Minister for Innovation, Science and Economic Development has been a leader in getting the provinces to sit down and negotiate the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, an internal free trade agreement that will eventually reduce, Mr. Speaker, through the working group, the tariffs, the internal tariffs on beer and spirits and wine. Mr. Speaker, we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe that the solution to this question of freer movement of beer, wine and spirits resides in getting all of the provinces to sit down together and to come up with a solution. That's what we're doing.
Well, Member for Perth Wellington.
But, Mr. Speaker, the fact is the Como case shows that these Liberals really aren't committed to internal free trade. In fact, the working group that the Parliament Secretary cites has met a number of times, but they won't reveal any details because the government says it would be injurious to federal-provincial relations. How bad are these meetings going that even releasing the names of the attendees would be injurious to federal-provincial relations? And the Attorney General herself argued against Mr. Como at the Supreme Court. Will these Liberals finally stand up for local businesses and consumers, show an ounce of leadership, and free the beer?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I guess the question before the Supreme Court was to free or not to free. That was the question. They came up with their answer, Mr. Speaker. Our approach, Mr. Speaker, has been the same from the get-go. We are working with the provinces. Unlike the members of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, our approach respects provincial authority and provincial jurisdiction. Our minister has shown leadership in getting the provinces to sit down and put together a Canadian Free Trade Agreement, and that agreement will eventually result in the free movement of beer and spirits, but only when the working group reports and the provinces agree.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, a true Canadian Free Trade Agreement offers an incredible economic opportunity. It will create jobs and improve consumer choice. Interprovincial trade barriers are crippling Canadian businesses, costing our economy $130 billion. Instead of fighting for free trade, the Liberals are stifling growth, piling on debt, and imposing an unprecedented escalator tax on beer, wine, and spirits. Will the Prime Minister commit to renegotiating a true Canadian Free Trade Agreement? Will he axe the tax? Will he free the beer?
Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Harper Conservative government had 10 years to negotiate a Canadian Free Trade Agreement. They did absolutely nothing.
They would have
got it. One more term.
Mr. Speaker, our minister has led the provinces. We do have a real, true Canadian free trade agreement in place. That agreement provides a mechanism through a working group to provide for the freer movement of beer and spirits and wine across Canada. That's the result that we are seeking, Mr. Speaker. That's the approach we've taken from the get-go.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. What do Quebec City's La Chouape, Canmore's Grizzly Paw, and Grand Prairie's GP Brewing have in common? That is that they're excellent Canadian beers made with homegrown ingredients brewed right here at home. Unfortunately, not all Canadians have access to these products because this government has failed to achieve a true free trade deal between provinces and territories. An estimated $130 million is lost on account of interprovincial trade barriers. When is the government going to renegotiate the deal and free the beer? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade. The Conservative approach was different, but ours was to respect provincial jurisdiction, the authority of the provinces, and to undertake an approach of cooperative federalism. And that's what we're doing. Our minister has shown leadership, has brought the provinces together around the table to negotiate a domestic free trade deal. That's what we have been doing, and that is what we will continue to do.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative stratagem to muzzle organizations that were critical of their environmental policies is still alive and well in the Liberal Party. Charitable organizations came out of a meeting with the Minister of Finance this week disappointed and dissatisfied, convinced that this issue is not a priority for this government and that it has no intention to update its rules. The Liberals had promised to do this during the last elections, and you can even read that in their platform. How can the government explain this incomprehensible about-face? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Revenue.
Understands the important role charities play in our society, and we have listened to the sector's concern. As mentioned in Minister's mandate letter, we are committed to letting charities carry out the extremely important work without the fear of political harassment. Budget 2018 reiterates our government to clarifying the rules that respect any political activities. An expert panel was set out to study the issue and made recommendations to which we, in collaboration with the Minister of Finance, will respond in the coming months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Quote, we will allow charities to do their work on behalf of Canadians free from political harassment. Unquote. Who said that, Mr. Speaker? Liberals did in the 2015 Liberal platform. They've done nothing. Anti-poverty charities raise concerns about massive inequalities caused by Liberal policies. Environment charities expose the Liberal failure on climate change. And these truths are embarrassing to this government. Is that why the Harper witch hunt against charities is suddenly so convenient for this government?
Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, as I just stated, our government understands the important role charities play in our society, and we have actually listened to the sector's concerns. As mentioned, and as mentioned by my colleague and Minister's mandate letter, we are committed to letting charities carry out the extremely important work without the fear of political harassment. Budget 2018 reiterates our government's commitment to clarifying rules with respect to political activities. An expert panel was set out to study the issue and made recommendations to which, in collaboration with the Minister of Finance, we will respond in the coming months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, as a former small business owner and operator, I know how important women entrepreneurs are, not only to the economy in my riding of the Long Range Mountains, but to my province of Newfoundland and Labrador and to our entire country. I would like to take this opportunity to ask the Minister of Small Business and Tourism what steps our government is taking to help encourage more women to be their own bosses and become successful entrepreneurs.
The Honourable Minister of Small Business and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Long Range Mountains for her commitment and advocacy on this file. Women represent tremendous potential for our economy. In Budget 2018, we committed almost $2 billion to the first ever Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. This strategy will help women grow their businesses through greater access to financing, mentorship, government procurement, and international markets. We know that women-led businesses can grow and compete on the world stage and create good-paying jobs here at home. This strategy will help them do exactly that and get even further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we learned today that the Liberals want to establish a process that would ask illegal migrants which province they'd like to live in. Wow. The Liberals know that the vast majority of illegal migrants at the Quebec border are not refugees. They come into Canada illegally, or they go through the United States to take advantage of the gaps. Does the Prime Minister not understand that under Canadian law, all foreigners have to respect our borders? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, we are an open and welcoming country for people who need protection. However, our government is determined to ensure orderly immigration.
Working very closely with Quebec to make sure that we address the concerns raised by Quebec and other provinces on the issue of irregular migration. We are responsible on this file. We have invested, as part of Budget 2018, $173 million for border security operations and $74 million for the IRB for faster processing of refugee claims. What is scandalous is that the Conservatives, the Harper Conservatives, cut $390 million from CBS.
Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I don't think the Minister really understands what's happening. The Prime Minister looks down on people of good faith who want to immigrate in Canada. These people have to follow a long and complicated process, whereas those who enter Canada legally are provided first-class service with a varied menu of health care and various regions they can move to. Canada is a compassionate country, yes, but the Liberals seem to prefer just creating chaos. Why is the Prime Minister so lacking in respect for Quebecers and for true immigrants? The Honourable Minister.
The rhetoric that will lead that party to another decade of opposition, because Canadians don't appreciate setting one group of immigrants against another. We are taking responsibility for this issue. We're fully in control. We make sure that there's adequate responsibility and investments in border protection, in the processing of asylum claims. What that party did when they were in government is they irresponsibly cut $390 million from CBSA. So it is very rich for that member to talk about border operations when they cut much-needed investments in CBSA.
Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's #Welcome to Canada tweet caused tens of thousands of illegal border crossers to flood into Canada from the United States of America and claim asylum. We also know that there's no end in sight. Border agents are expecting upwards of 400 illegal border crossers per day this summer. The Prime Minister has failed to manage the border. Will the Prime Minister tell Canadians if he has any plan to stop the flow of illegal border crossers?
Honourable Minister of Immigration and Refugees.
We are fully in control over this issue. We have a task force, an intergovernmental task force on irregular migration. We had our 9th meeting last night with different provincial representatives. We have made the necessary investments in speeding up work permits for asylum seekers so they don't we minimize the impacts on provincial social services. What is irresponsible is cutting funding for CBSA and pretend that you care about the border. What is irresponsible is cutting funding for the IRB and care about refugee processing. What is irresponsible is having toxic relationships with provinces. We will...
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
What is irresponsible is to throw hundreds of millions of dollars at illegal border crossers. Over $200 million just to process their paperwork. Millions of dollars to construct tent cities. Millions of dollars to turn Olympic Stadium into a refugee camp. And all this has done is made the problem worse. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister had the audacity to tell a veteran who served our country that he was asking for more than we could give. Why is this the Prime Minister's priority instead of stopping the flow of illegal border crossers?
The member opposite is on record as having called on us to make investments to deal with the issue of irregular migration. We have listened, and what have we done? We've invested
Sorry. These shouts in unison really are very much a distraction when we're trying to have debate and exchange of questions. So we'll go back to the Honourable Minister of Immigration and Refugees.
Mr. Speaker, the party opposite was calling on us for months to make the necessary investments on this issue. We've listened and we've made the necessary investments. $173 million for irregular migration, $74 million for the IRB, and we are investing in CBSA and so on. We're investing in faster processing of work permits. But let me quote the head of the UNHCR in Canada, the expert on this issue. Canada's borders remain secure. The government of Canada has adapted to the increase with measures that reduce congestions at land points of...
Sorry, we've run out of time. The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, in the face of what health experts are calling an epidemic, the federal government has cut funding to 30% of AIDS organizations, providing no explanation. Saskatchewan's HIV rate is 2.5 times the national average, yet the funding of two organizations, AIDS Saskatoon and All Nations Hope, who do important work in outreach, education and prevention, has been cut. Instead of these short-sighted cuts, will the minister provide proper funding by restoring the missing millions from our HIV strategy?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary for Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure the member opposite that our government is deeply committed to addressing HIV and AIDS in Canada, and we are proud to have reversed the former government's spending cuts in this area. And for example, Mr. Speaker, this year our government is investing $87 million across the country to help tackle HIV and other sexually transmitted and bloodborne diseases in Canada, and we have announced an additional $30 million over the next 5 years to support Canadian-based harm reduction initiatives. Our government will continue to work closely with all of our partners to make progress towards the global targets in order to eliminate AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Esquimalt, Saanich, Sooke.
Recently, the Prime Minister posed for a cover photo for Attitude, the UK's largest LGBTQ magazine, and expressed his support for international LGBTQ rights. Today, he's in London for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings, supposedly an organization founded on shared values, yet one where 36 of its 53 members still criminalize being gay, and the topic has never been on their agenda. My question is this: did the Prime Minister make the same effort in getting LGBTQ rights on the Commonwealth agenda as he did to score his own magazine cover photo?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our government is a tireless advocate for the rights of the LGBTQ2 community, both at home and abroad. We raise these issues everywhere we go around the world. We've introduced legislation here at home to protect the rights of transgender and gender-diverse Canadians. We've appointed a special advisor on LGBTQ2 issues. We are co-chairing the Equal Rights Coalition, which is advocating for the rights of the LGBTQ2 community abroad. We've prioritized LGBTQ2 refugees, and as part of our initiative to resettle 50,000 Syrian refugees in Canada. We are on the record everywhere we go standing for the rights of this vulnerable population. We continue to do that.
Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice has continuously said that she is concerned about the efficiency and increasing people's confidence in the criminal justice system. So I have to ask her, after the decision in the Alberta case of the notorious gang leader Nick Chan was thrown out because of delays, why is she not making the necessary appointments to make sure something like this does not happen again?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said, our government is committed to improving the efficiencies and the effectiveness of the criminal justice system, to ensure victims are supported, to ensure that offenders are taken into account, and to ensure public safety. Delays in the criminal justice system are not new. They certainly existed in the previous government. The case of reference started to make its way through the system well in advance of us taking government. What is new is that we have taken significant steps by introducing Bill C-75 that will make great aims and bold action to address delays. As well, I have appointed 167 judges to the superior courts of this country.
Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, the minister stated that she had appointed 167 new judges. Then why has she not managed to do her work in Alberta? During my 6-year tenure as Minister of Justice, there was never a lack of qualified individuals to appoint to the bench. Why does she not make the appointments that were necessary to prevent these offensive releases of criminals accused of murder?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm always pleased to stand up here to talk about the independent process in terms of appointing meritorious candidates to the superior courts across this country. I am proud of the 167 meritorious appointments that I have made that reflect the diversity of this country. 27 of those appointments are in Alberta. I will continue to make appointments to the vacancies that currently still exist. This is something that I take incredibly seriously. We have substantive candidates that are being brought forward, and they will be considered in the same process that every candidate is considered.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the criminal organization that Nick Chan is the head of is the so-called Fresh Off the Boat gang, a gang linked to more than a dozen murders. Today, Calgary is a less safe place because Nick Chan is back out on the streets because this Minister of Justice has abdicated her responsibilities to deal with the backlog and get judges appointed. When is the minister going to stop making excuses and take responsibility for her negligence?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I am committed to continuing to appoint meritorious judges to the superior courts across this country. The member opposite should know that appointing judges isn't necessarily the main reason why delays exist. What we are doing is fulfilling our government's commitment to follow through to significantly address court delays with introducing bold reform by way of C-75. I expect the member opposite will support these measures because they will significantly reduce the delays in the criminal justice system.
The Honourable Member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Oakville, access to temporary housing, shelters for abused women, and adult supportive housing are critical issues. Last November, the government announced Canada's first ever national housing strategy, a 10-year, $40 billion plan to give more Canadians a place to call home. Last week, we saw the first multilateral agreement on housing in a quarter of a century signed with the provinces and territories.
Excellent.
Could the minister responsible for the national housing strategy explain how the housing partnership framework will help realize the government's bold vision for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like first to thank and congratulate the member for Oakville for his tremendous work in support of the housing needs of his constituents. On April the 9th, we signed a historic housing partnership of provinces and territories that recognize our combined and complementary responsibility to support the housing needs of Canadians. This is part of a national housing strategy, a 10-year, $40 billion plan that is going to bring 500,000 Canadians out of housing need and launch a new era for housing in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' weak response to systemic problems in our rail transportation industry has already hurt Canada's agriculture, manufacturing and natural resources industries. Now they are bracing for another blow. A work stoppage at CP Rail will be devastating, not only to these industries, but to our economy as well. Is this Liberal government prepared to act to protect the livelihoods of thousands of Canadians, or will they simply cross their fingers and hope for the best?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, federal mediators are on site. They're working very hard on the negotiations. I've spoken to the employer and both unions, and I have stressed that I expect all parties to stay at the table until they get a deal. I will continue to closely monitor the situation. Thank you.
The Honourable Member, Lala Deputy de Desnathy, Miss Nippy, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, in September, the government and the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls promised they would come and hold public meetings in La Ronge, Meadow Lake, and La Loche, but they never came. When we followed up with them on their promise, they never answered our questions. So far, the government has failed families in northern Saskatchewan. When will they come and fulfill the promise they made to First Nations and Métis mothers and fathers in my riding?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her question today. Our government is committed to ending the ongoing national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. That's why we were the first government to establish the Independent Commission, and their mandate is clear, and that is that families must be at the centre of their work. We are committed to ensuring that this inquiry operates in the best interests of family and those affected, ensuring that they get the answers that many have been waiting for about the systemic and institutional failures that have led to this tragedy within our country.
The honourable member for St. John's East.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, from St. John's, Newfoundland to British Columbia, our official languages are at the heart of who we are. After 10 years of underinvestment on the part of the Conservative government, our government is taking concrete action to protect official languages because we recognize the importance and contribution of linguistic duality in the lives of Canadian men and women. Can the Minister of Heritage tell this House what our government is doing to protect our official languages? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from St. John East for his question and for his excellent French. Our two official languages, as he said so well, is at the heart of who we are, and that's why this government has decided to make the most significant investments in our history. $500 million in new funds for a total of $2.7 billion in our official language communities. After 10 years of underinvestment under the Conservatives, we're very proud of taking concrete steps. We will strengthen our communities, strengthen our services in order to promote a bilingual Canada. That's why we are acting.
Member for Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, leading scientific research shows that quality service dogs significantly benefit the lives of our veterans who are struggling with PTSD. And yet yesterday, this government announced that it will not be providing a nationwide standard for the training of these dogs. We already know that this Prime Minister has money for everyone but our veterans. Is he now saying that a national standard for the training of their service dogs is, well, also something more than he can give?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I won't even draw attention to the fact that the party opposite was a party that voted against funding for service dogs, but I will speak to the issue directly. Governments previous had attempted to derive a national standard for service dogs. We realized that this wasn't getting anywhere, not fast enough for this government, so we decided to solely look at psychiatric service dogs, and we will establish a standard for them because we will get that service to those who need it, our veterans, as quickly as we possibly can, just as we've delivered $10 billion for our veterans in 2 years.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to meddling in others' affairs, you can always count on the federal government. This time, they are interfering in the National Assembly's work by funding a case against their right to work in French. I'm not inventing this, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Heritage is giving the Montreal Bar $125,000 to challenge Quebec's laws because they were debated in French. $125,000, Mr. Speaker. Does the minister agree with this challenge that she's funding? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, there are organizations that decided to start these procedures. That's their choice. It is before the courts currently, and therefore I cannot comment on it further. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, talking about funding this case, pay equity legislation, anti-scab legislation, consumer protection legislation, child care legislation, environmental legislation, all these Quebec laws that we are so proud of are being challenged thanks to who? Thanks to the support and the money of the Minister of Heritage. How can the minister justify using Quebecers' monies to attack the only parliament that acts on their behalf? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, as I already said, these organizations decided to start these procedures themselves. That's their choice. And because the case is before the courts, I cannot comment any further.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The warnings of climate scientists are becoming increasingly urgent and worrying. The most recently days ago was that the world is watching the weakening of the Gulf Stream ocean currents with potentially catastrophic impacts. The scientists are warning that we must reduce greenhouse gases far more rapidly than on our current commitments, and if we fail to do so, if we blow through our carbon budget, we will pay dearly. This is a budget we can't afford to ignore, and it is incompatible with completing Kinder Morgan. Can the government show us the numbers of how you build a pipeline and meet your climate targets?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member. This government agrees that climate change is an extremely important issue. We have been working very actively to implement the Pan-Canadian Framework on clean growth and climate change. The latest national inventory report from the United Nations shows that carbon pollution declined between 2015 and 2016, and in fact, Canada's third biennial report, which was published in 2017, shows that Canada's emissions are projected to be 232 megatons lower than was projected just last year. The Trans Mountain emissions, both upstream and direct, are incorporated into the Pan-Canadian Framework. When these policies and programs are fully implemented in Canada, we are very confident we will meet the targets under the Paris Agreement and set even more ambitious targets as we move forward.
That will conclude question period for today. I have notice of a point of order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est avec...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with great sadness that I rise today in this House, because nothing hurts us more on this side of the House than a creative and literary work which is futile.
Among many of us, and I suspect if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent to free the book by the member from Beauce. Libérez le livre, Monsieur le Président.
Free the book, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauce.
Reglement.
On the same point of order. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, I believe that these people are desperate. I'd like them to be patient, wait a few years, because it was my own decision to not publish this book, but one day I will write something.
I think that will consider the matter closed.